This is the final of 4 videos I've done on double tiger play. This time I'll be looking at what Bill Robertie has to say, and I'm afraid it's probably going to be another slightly long one, but there's so much here to learn that it's worth the time, I think. So just a reminder, double tiger play is when you leave a double hit in your own home board, so you're leaving 2 blots in your home board. And I just thought I'd show you an example. I was playing in an Irish league game this week, and this is the position I faced, and I suddenly saw the option for double tiger play. My eyes lit up and I thought, this is brilliant. I wasn't sure was the right move or not. Definitely, Mitchie would say you want to be hitting if the most important points. So if we can hit with 8 to 5 and 6 to 4, we're hitting on our 5 point and our 4 point, which is the points we want to make. So that's a big argument in favour of hitting. And I thought, well, look, I still wasn't quite sure, but I thought, you know what? Feck it, I'm going to do it because at least I'm studying tiger play. I'll learn if it was a right or was a wrong. I did it. I said 8 to 5 and hit, and then 6 to 4 and hit, and that was a blunder. And the blunder is, I suppose, one of the big lessons kind of took out from it was it's something more constructive to do. So I did the 8 to 5 and 6 to 4, but if I could have put them back there, there's a much tighter and neater move. We're coming at the very end of this video looking at a few fundamental rules for double tiger play. And definitely one of the big ones that stands out is there a constructive alternative? And there's a really good alternative to double hitting here. Much simpler. I'm sure you've spotted already. If I play 8 to 5 all right like that, we just play 7 to 5, make my 5 point. No blots left behind. I've made a really good point. I've stolen half of black's roll. Next go. I've given myself my 5 point, my golden point. I'm delighted. I've kind of definitely given myself a really good fighting chance of making more and more points on my home board. I didn't need to be quite as aggressive and do the double hit, and it was a blunder. Third choice option there was the blunder. I was so excited to do it, given that I've been studying this section, and I think probably if I hadn't studied this section, I think the 5 point is an obvious one to do, but I was in humor, and it's kind of I think it's something you find with backgammon. The more I read books, it takes a while to assimilate the ideas into your game. And sometimes you read a book, I find particularly with Mitchie, I read Mitchie's books and my PR just gets worse and worse and worse for a while as I over-try things. And here is over-trying, but just an interesting message. And it'll come up throughout this video is if there are constructive alternatives, we may be better doing them. But this video is, we've looked at Mitchie, we've looked at people like Dan Revere and Gary Koscielny. In the last video I looked at Dirk Sheeman, and this video looks at, as I've said before, Bill Robertie has 3 excellent books called How to Play the Opening in Backgammon, parts 1, 2, and 3. In part 2, he has a section about hitting 2 and leaving 2 blots in your home board and the options for that. So he starts with an instant position. I'm not going to. This is just Mitchie's position over again. What would you do with a 2 and a 1 here? And the correct answer is to hit on 6 to 4 and 6 to 5. We won't go dwelling the length of it. He then looks at the option of this situation here. We could double hit here with hitting on the 1 and hitting on the 5, but that's an overplay. It's definitely, even if it's not, that actually doesn't leave as many shots as some of the alternative plays you could play than the correct play. In fact, leaves slightly more shots, but you're dumping that checker on the 1 point, and we don't want that extra checker on the 1 point. And as Mitchie says, don't hit in the 1 point unless you've got 10 checkers in the zone. So the correct thing to do is just to kind of hit 6 to 5 and then just come down from there. That actually leaves one more shot, believe it or not, than the double hit. But it's long term, we've got our checkers now in the right position, in the right place. We don't want to put that checker too deep. So the way Bill Robertie works in his book is he tends to give all the theory first and then give a whole lot of positions and see which theories apply to them. The other writers I've been kind of looking at tend to kind of go through one principle and then some examples for that principle, then another principle and some examples for that principle. With Bill Robertie, he gives all the principles first and then starts to apply them. So that's just how he does it. So he's a number of key features that we need. He says we need to look at when we are considering the double tiger play. And this is a new one. What is the position of our back checkers? And in fact, throughout his book, How to Play the Opening Backgammon, the position of the back checkers, he puts a remarkable amount of importance to this. And there's different options. So we could have a high anchor, we could have a good anchor, advanced anchor on our home board. If we have that good anchor, well then we're doing well in the game. We don't need to be taking a risk. Double tiger is risky, just is. So if we've made a good anchor, we're already in a good position. We've got the early edge, and we don't need to jeopardize our early edge by doing a risky double tiger play. Generally, with a high anchor, we tend to play more safely. However, if we have our checkers are still rooted to our 24 point, our two back checkers are still rooted to where they started, well then the double tiger becomes a bit more attractive because it gives you a chance to turn the game around and maybe at least buy you time to get our back checkers moving. If we have one checker back, and again, this is a theme of Bill Robertie's opening books, which one checker back means we've escaped one checker. And he's really keen on this. If we've escaped a checker, that's a huge achievement. And we need to preserve this achievement by not getting any more checkers hit. So think about it. If we've escaped a checker, say we played 6-5 and Lover's Leap and we got our checker free. If we do double tiger, we're really giving our opponent a chance to hit us and send a second checker back. We undermine everything we've achieved so far. So for that reason, he says, if there's one checker back, we're playing safely. And the final thing, split back checkers, it's a neutral role, but we're going to find later on that sometimes it's a copy of what Dirk Sheeman said as well. Sometimes we will, with split back checkers, the role that lets us double hit also lets us make a good advanced anchor, and we just have to weigh up the choices that we might have there with split back checkers. Other key features, well, we need to look at, this is something that Mitchie said, how strong our opponent's board is. Bill Robertie says that we should be more inclined to hit when our opponent has a stronger board because we're possibly behind in the strength in the game. That's contrary to what Dirk Sheeman and Mitchie said. They would have said, look, there's more at risk if you double hit and double tiger and get hit back. The stronger our opponent's on board, the more risky it is. So my jury is still out a little bit in this key feature too, because it's a direct contradiction of Mitchie and Dirk Sheeman, who I tend to trust. Where the checkers were hitting, well, this definitely is what Mitchie was saying. We want to be hitting on the 4 and the 5 point, was what Dirk Sheeman was saying as well. If you're hitting on your ace point, well, remember Mitchie said you have to have at least 10 checkers in the zone, but also hitting on the ace point generally is not the point we want to hit on, so just bear that in mind. What's happening with the race, and this is kind of more normal. If we're behind in the race, maybe we should try the double tiger and try and turn things around. If we're ahead in the race, there's no point playing a risky play like the double tiger. How strong is our board? Comes back to it again, because if we have a strong board, it means that our opponent's much more likely to dance, and if we can make one of those two blocks that we've left, we can make points there, we're obviously going to be in an even stronger board position. Where are the checkers that do the hitting? We've looked at this before as well in the previous videos, that you don't want to be taking checkers that strip your 8 point, or even to take your completely lose your 8 point altogether. So if we can hit from a stacked point, it's a better thing to do. We don't want to be kind of breaking our 8 point altogether just for a hit. And sometimes it's the right thing to do, but it just has to be borne in mind. And this is the thing that I was saying in my position that I showed from my game at the start. What are the alternatives? Because if there's something better to do, it's usually right that we do it. For the double tiger to be wrong, there's usually a pretty good alternative. Maybe hitting or making a strong point. And that's really the key thing we need to look at is there a better alternative? That's possibly my takeaway from all 4 videos and all the kind of people I've been reading is, look, double tiger is actually quite good. As all the commentators said, I'm just looking at what Bill Robertie's his great way of phrasing it. He said, the double tiger can be very right or very wrong or anything in between. And it's double tigers. I'm still getting my head around it, as you can see with my mistake there, or blunder earlier on. But if there's a good alternative, I think you're safer doing the good alternative. That's the big thing I'm going to play in mind. And finally, upcoming cube action. Bill Robertie just notes that double tiger makes it a very volatile game. And there could be a situation where if we're not hit back, and the other commentators have said this as well, we suddenly have the opportunity for an easy cube and maybe a cash in for the game with a cube that can't be kind of taken. So for that reason, cube action just has to be borne in mind. And sometimes the possibility of being able to throw a cube later on in the next row makes a double tiger attractive. So I just listed what his key features 1 to 8, and I've actually put them into a slightly different order here, just thought them easier to remember. I don't know if you like, in case you want to take a screenshot of what Bill Robertie's principles are. That's them there. I'm going to do my own kind of set of principles at the end of this video. But then he launches into a series of videos, and he starts off with 4-3 and how would you play 4-3 here. And this is a situation. Look at our back checkers. I said Bill Robertie very strong about the position of our back checkers. Difficult one to do. The 3, we could try and advance one of those back checkers with the 3. But what do you do with a 4? You could come down 13 to 9, but black's got 2 checkers just targeting in on that 9 point there. That's a bit of a risky play. So maybe you don't come down with the 9. We could play 6 to 2, but now we're dumping a checker, bearing it very deep in a position we don't want it. So maybe just go back to the start and say, well, is there something else we can do? Well, this is a chapter on double tiger, so yes, we're going to go 8 to 4 and 8 to 5. Double tiger buys us time, gives us a chance, and as Bill Robertie says, gives us a chance to turn the race around in our favour. At the moment up the top there, black is very strong, and we haven't moved our back checkers. So by double hitting, it maybe, if black is unfortunate to roll a 4 or a 5, we might be able to cover those points, and suddenly we've got the stronger home board. And for that reason, it's wrong not to do it. And again, I've mentioned this throughout these 4 videos. It's amazing with double tiger. Amazing when you're meant to do it and you don't do it, it tends to be a blunder, not just an error. And when you do it and you're not meant to do it, it tends to be a blunder, not just an error. There are some positions, there'll be some positions in this video where it's only a minor error not to do the double tiger or to do it. But it's amazing how many times you go straight into blunder. It's double tiger or blunder is basically the choices here. So that's that position. And he says, well, look, let's just take that position. That's what we've just gone through. But look up in the top right there, and we've got our 2 white checkers on our 24 point, rooted there on a 24 point. What if we move that position forward? Does that change things? Well, it does, because according to Bill Robertie's rules, now we're much more competitive in the race. We're in a much stronger position, and for this reason, we should just play safer. And the safest play is just to come down, bring a checker down from our 13 point to our 6 point. We play 13 to 6, and you could dump a couple of checkers, unstack the 6 points with 6-3 and 6-2. Not a bad thing. But look there, double tiger, as I said, this time when you do it, it's a blunder. And you get straight into blunder territory very quickly. I won't dwell long on these positions because we did these with Dirk Sheeman in the last video as well. What to do when you roll a 3 and a 2. There's 2 options. You can look up in the top right there. The 3 and a 2 would allow us to make an anchor on our 21 point. Or down the bottom, the 3 and a 2 would allow us to hit on our 4 point, which we want, and our 3 point, which we want next after that. And if you remember the last video, you'll probably know the answer to this. The 21 point anchor isn't particularly attractive compared to the 20 point anchor. So we're only making the 21 point anchor. So for that reason, and there's nothing, again, looking up on the top right in black's home board, they've nothing to threaten. We're going to come back in if we're hit. So for that reason, the right thing is the double hit with that. And I said I'm not going to go through every position here because we did this before. But again, thinking back to what Dirk Sheeman said, this is just a repeat of it again. We rolled a 4, instead of exactly the same position, but instead of rolling a 3 and a 2, we rolled a 4 and a 3. Now we can make the best anchor, our 20 point anchor, our golden point. And we'll have our anchor on black's 5 point, and we've made our 5 point. So we're in a very strong position. So now in this situation, the correct move is to make the anchor. But only just. Not much of a difference. And in fact, Bill Robertie does something quite interesting. That's that position. If you look at the black has made their bar point, the 2 checkers that black has on their 7 point. If we move them back from the 7 point to the 11 point like that, it's now much easier for us to escape. So now making our golden point anchor on our 20 point is less significant, and it becomes a blunder. straight away. Just giving black less checkers to attack us with. The double tiger play is much more attractive now, and the right option. Bill Robertie then goes through a number of positions, just sample positions, and he categorizes them. He just breaks them into sections according to where the back checkers are. So a few in the back checkers on the 24 point. These are all going to be the same. How would you play in a 5 and a 4? We know that the back checkers on the 24 point we're going to be a bit more aggressive. We could. There's not a lot of. I keep talking about other constructive alternatives. There's not really. You could play 13 to 4 and hit black's blot on the 4, coming down for the 13 and hitting the 4. But look at that. Why would you break your midpoint? Leave a blot in your midpoint to be hit back. It just looks so vulnerable. That looks awful. So let's just go back to that. So there's really not much else on. So you could go 8 to 4 and hit, and 6 to 1 and hit. And really, it's the lack of constructive alternatives that make that the right play, and everything else. Look, the size of the blunders we're starting to get into here if we don't double hit. Here we've similar situation where we have rolled 5 and a 3, and you might say, well, you could come down with the 5 and come 13 to 5, basically. Come down with the 5, 13 to 8, and then move it on and hitting it there. That's not a bad position. The only problem with this, and this is kind of quirky little position here, if you look at it, the only numbers that stop black coming in from the bar are 3 or 6s. So, and then up the top of the board, the best numbers for black for covering their blot on our 20 point, their 5 point, they'd like to cover that blot. It's covered with a 3 or a 6 or a 1. So basically, the problem with leaving the position like this, and it's a hard one to see, is that basically black might roll double 6s or double 3s or a 6-3 and dance. But if black doesn't dance, they have every other roll is really good for them, because every other roll will get them in and allow them to cover, either to make a good anchor in our board or to cover their blot up the top there on the top right. So for that reason, it's hard to see that, but it's the single hit is not achieving enough, and instead what we need to do is deprive them of both their rolls. It's a bit of a tempo thing here. 8 to 5, 6 to 1, hit with both of those numbers. And now if black does come in and hit us, well, at least we've got a shot now, a free shot at hitting their blot at the top. It's that much more attractive for us as well. And again, blunder if we don't do that. This looks like a very similar position. It's very similar to the last position, but we've rolled a 6 and a 3. And you could play 13 to 4 and hit like that. That's not a bad option. But our single blot there is vulnerable, and as Bill Robertie says, it doesn't really achieve very much. We could do a double hit, a double tiger, so we go 7 to 4 and 7 to 1. And given that this is a chapter in double tiger, you might expect that to be right. But Bill Robertie, he kind of says that the double hit here comes at a very big price, because going back to the start there, the only thing we have going for us is we've made our bar point. We've got a little 3 prime there, and we've the what's the word? The embryonic start of a prime there. That's the only thing we have going for us. If we double hit, we've lost the one thing that we have. So yes, we double hit. We lose our attacking territory as well. So he said, look, there's another option we can do here. If you think about it, 6-3, we can just get over ourselves and just go run the back checker. So we just run from 24 to 18 and on 3. He puts it. I like what he says about this. He says it's not a dramatic play, but it's just the best available. We leave our attacking. We don't break our attacking position down the bottom. We just run the back checker, and if it escapes, we're suddenly in a much stronger position. And that's as you can see, there's not a lot of blunders in that situation. It wouldn't be a blunder to double hit, but just it's not as good as the running play. The next position Robertie gives involves this one. It's a fairly balanced position, but we have rolled a very unhelpful 5 and a 3. And the question is, how can we play this 5 and a 3? We could hit double hit like that, and that's an option, definitely, to play the double hit here. We could also just make our 3 point. But the problem with that is that we have given black loads of chances to hit our blot on our bar point, our 7 point. Black has 2 checkers bearing in that, and lots of good rolls for black generally. And it hasn't really, Dirk Sheeman always talks about the momentum. It hasn't. It just gives black the momentum. So the final option is we hit with the 3, and the problem with I didn't really explain. I skipped that a little bit, but playing 6-1 again, we're bearing a checker deep, as Mitchie would say. His point was we haven't got 10 checkers in the zone. We shouldn't be hitting in the ace point. The right thing is just you hit the 1, come down 13-8. You have a bit more ammunition in the zone next time, and just we don't need to be. It's an overplay to double hit. The correct answer is just the 1 hit. Now, all those positions I've just done lately were where we had no anchor in our opponent's home board. We were stuck to the 24 point. But now let's look at the ones where we have a strong anchor. So we've got an anchor on our 18 point. We've come advances very far. If you think back to what Bill Robertie said, is when we have an anchor on our 18 point, we play safe. We could double hit here with 8-4 and 6-5 and hit both of those. But we've got an anchor. We're doing really well in the game. We're even up in the race. And for that reason, let's not give black a chance to hit us back. Just play safe with 13-8. And that's a simple one. Here's another one where we have an anchor. And it looks like we we could double hit again, 8-3 and 6-4. Probably that's quite there are points we want to make. But there's a safer thing we can do. We could just play 13-11 and then tuck that checker. We've unstack our 6 point by playing 6-1. It does dump a checker, but it's not disastrous. It's only 1 checker dumped. And if you look at it there's not much between the two. It's one of the rare positions where double tigering or not double tigering doesn't really make a difference. But what if we took that position where we have the anchor on our 20 point and just very simply move it back to our 24 point? So in other words, we haven't moved our back checkers at all. Does that change things? And based on the fact that Bill Robertie is at pains to point out that when we've made an advanced anchor, we should play very safe. When we haven't moved our back checkers, we should play a lot more aggressively. You can see what's going to come here. The correct move now is the double hit, and the safer move is kind of horrendously into a blunder territory there. Finally, what do you do when black checkers are split? This is the final 3 examples he gives. His point with if the back checkers are split, we've one on our 24 point, one on our 23 point. He said, look, that's kind of neutral. You bring other things into mind here. This 5-2 is an interesting position. There's lots of things you could do with it. So you could just come out with it from the 23 to the 18 point, and what do you do with the 2 now? You can play 6-4, but it leaves a lot of shots. Black is very likely to be hitting you somewhere around the board on the way back in. So we'll put that back. You could do the opposite, just play 10-8 and keep things tidy. But that's very rigid and inflexible and probably going to lead to trouble later on. So let's just go back to the start. And he says, well, you could go 10-5 and 7-5 and make our 5 points quite nice. The problem here again is black has 2 checkers targeting our blot and our 7 point. So double the chances of hitting us. So it's a little bit risky. So for lack of good constructive alternatives, what you can do is you can play 6-1 and hit, and then 6-4 and do the double hit, and that's the correct move. It just is. It buys us time. There's just really nothing else that's good to do. He gives this as another example, very similar, but we've advanced one of our back checkers a little bit further. Again, just looking at options, there's not a lot. We could play 1 down from 13-8 and 6-4, but there's lots of hitting numbers there. I haven't counted them. I'd imagine it's about 24, 25, even more. It could be 27, I think, hitting numbers there for black coming back. And so it's very costly in the race. Instead, we could hit 6-1, 6-4, and it's Mitchie talked about counting your shots. We're leaving less shots here, and we start to seize control in the race, and for that reason, blunder to do the anything else. And finally, this is the last position Bill Robertie gives, and I just thought there's a poetic symmetry or something to do with the position I showed you of my own at the start of this video, the 5 and the 2. Well, we can double hit. We can play 8 to 3 and 6 to 4 and double hit if you want to. It's a risky play. We're up in the race and we don't need to be kind of taking the risky plays. Is there something else constructive we can do? Well, yes. Look at the check up the top middle there on our 18 point. We moved that forward 5 and then down 2 from 13 to 11. We've made an outfield point, which he always likes. We're now up in the race. We haven't taken any risks. We've escaped one of our back checkers very nicely, and we're in a kind of a much more flexible position than black. So that's the right thing to do. And anything else is a blunder. The double hit there is third choice, and it's an overplay because we don't need to take a risk. We're up in the race. We're in a strong position. Finally, that's all Bill Robertie had to say. And we come to a kind of a moment where at the end of it, I'm conscious these videos have been much longer than my usual videos, and I hope they haven't dragged on, but it's just there's so much in this that I'm trying to get my head around. And at the end of it all, when I was kind of totting up my notes and things, I was trying to say, well, look, what am I taking out of this regarding double tiger play? And bear in mind, as I said to you before, I'm not an expert. I'm an intermediate player who's trying to get a little bit better. You saw my mistake in the start of this video. I tend to make humongous blunders at times to time, but I just want to learn. So when I say that these are the principles that I've taken out of it as the most important from the 4 videos, just bear in mind that there probably are experts going to say, well, I'm giving the wrong emphasis. But this is, for myself and for my notes, when I'm looking at considering do I play the double tiger play, I'm going to ask myself the following. Number 1, are the blots and the points you want to make? Typically 5-4. If our opponent has put their blots on the 5 point and the 4 point, it makes it very attractive to hit them. What are the board strengths like for both of us? What is our board strength like? What is the opponent's board strength like? Do we have enough checkers in the zone? Mitchie would like us to have about 10 checkers in the zone. It definitely favours double tiger play if we have more checkers in the zone. We have to shot count and see, well, look, sometimes what we think is a safer play actually leaves more shots. So just be careful with that. It's definitely worth bringing Paul McGreal's safe versus bold criteria into play. I did that in the second of the videos, and I'm going to share a little video I did for the study group I'm in about safe and bold play shortly as well. But I think that's really important, going through McGreal's criteria for safe versus bold. And if it says we should be playing safe, we don't double tiger. If it says we're being bold and the double tiger is on, we probably should do it. Number 6 there is kind of running theme of this video. Is there something else constructive we can do? Do we need to do double tiger, or can we do something else useful? 7, how are we doing the race? Is it worth, again, risking? I suppose that ties in with McGreal's safe or bold criteria. 8 is what Dirk Sheeman made a big play on in the video I talked about in his chapter on this. Match score. At gammon go, we should be much more open to double tiger. At gammon save positions, or even when we're just a little bit ahead, we should be a little bit more cautious about not giving away 2 points rather than just 1. So the double tiger is just worth considering. And finally, the thing I got from Bill Robertie most of all is, where are our back checkers? If they're advanced anchor, we play safe. If they're rooted at 24 point, we might play a bit more aggressive with the double tiger. They're the best of the positions and best of the principles that I could take out of this. And finally, that brings us to the end of Mitchie's opening concepts books. Thanks be to God. I think I've been at this since, I think it's been about 5 or 6 months of going through all the different proverbs. I have enjoyed the book. It's well worth a get. There's bits that I think I find more useful and relevant than others. What I'm going to do now is move on to go through Bill Robertie's How to Play the Opening and Backgammon books, and just go through them chapter by chapter now and do a few more video lessons on them, just for my own sake. Jesus, I imagine you're bored as hell of looking at the opening, and I'm sorry of that, but for me, and I know I've like a broken record on this, we play the opening in every single game we play. So if we can get better at the opening, it's got to be good for our game. I really, for my own development, I need to do more on cubing. I did little video notes for the study group I was in on another of Mitchie's books, and I'll share them. But for me, I'm just going to plow on. I'm afraid with uh, the opening and backgammon for now, and I'd love to feel that I'd become a grandmaster at opening plays. And if I can get that done, well then, you know, I'll then start moving on to. My hope is to go through Bill Robertie's 3 books and then move on to doubling and doubling theory and just see what all the analysts have to say about doubling. But first, I'm going to stay bogged down in the opening and go on to the Bill Robertie books next.